Hi guys, and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron, and welcome back today to another video. It is the game preview ahead of our Premier League fixture tomorrow evening at Goodison Park against Manchester City. Everton obviously coming into this game off the back of an absolutely awful 2-0 defeat against Fulham at Goodison Park only a couple of days ago, and we're facing probably the worst team we could hope to be facing off the back of that defeat. We actually had some momentum going into the Fulham game. We'd strung a couple of decent results together. We'd managed to nick a point against Manchester United at Old Trafford. We'd beaten Tottenham in the FA Cup in an action-packed game of football, and the Fulham game was the perfect opportunity to just get a nice 3 points wrapped up and come into this City game with, I don't want to say no expectation, but with a low expectation. I think we could all agree, and it's sort of be like a free hit if you like. Whatever happens against Manchester City happens. They're a very good side and they're running away with the league at the moment, but obviously, that's a little bit different now. We're coming into the Manchester City game after a really, really disappointing defeat at Goodison Park to Fulham, a game that we all, felt we should have done better in, a game that we all felt we should have been winning comfortably, despite how well Fulham played and, the fact that they turned up and they battled and they played some good football. That should never have been a competition. If Everton are a side that are wanting to fight for a European position come the end of the season, if Everton are a side that are wanting to have real aspirations of challenging in Europe, then we can't be going and being beaten at home to sides that are in the relegation zone, no matter how well they play. And obviously it leads us nicely into probably the most difficult fixture of the season. Obviously this one being played on Wednesday after it was postponed a couple of months back due to the outbreak of COVID in the Manchester City camp. We had a big long discussion about that one, and it has been rescheduled to tomorrow evening, which is just 3 days before the Merseyside derby at Anfield. So absolutely brilliant. Nice one for that Premier League. Carlo Ancelotti hasn't had his pre-game press conference at the time of recording, so at the moment we don't know the updates on Alan, we don't know the updates on Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Jordan Pickford, but we are going to go through our predicted starting 11 in a moment and talk about those players and talk about who I think will feature and who I think should feature in this game for Everton. But obviously on the off, it's going to be a very, very difficult game of football. Manchester City first in the Premier League look like the side that are going to run away with it. I mean, when you look at every other side in the league at the moment, Liverpool don't look like they're going to get close to them. They can't pick up points consistently. Manchester United are dropping points against poor sides. The other teams that are around them, Leicester again, I think are very, very hot and cold. 1 minute they're very good, the next minute they're atrocious. We don't need to mention Everton, West Ham. We're in a good run of form at the moment, but can they keep that up? So I think the general consensus between all footballing fans is that Manchester City are probably going to run away with it this season. I mean, obviously it's not said and done until it's mathematically confirmed, but I don't think any side's going to get close to them. First in the Premier League, 16 wins, 5 draws and 2 losses. They've gone on a streak of winning. I think they've won 10 out of the last 10 games. They last dropped points, coincidentally, to West Bromwich Albion when they last lost the game in November, 21st of November last year against Tottenham Hotspur. They've conceded 2 goals in those 10 games that they've won, and they've scored 26. So Manchester City not only are a very, very good side, they're not only winning games of football, they're not only playing good football, but it's not like they've gone on a 10-game win streak where, they've won. They've won sort of the odd game of football by a last minute goal, or they're scraping wins, or they're conceding 3 but they're scoring 4. They're not. They don't concede many goals whatsoever. 2 goals conceded in 10 games and 26 goals scored. Doesn't just mean you're coming up against a side that are winning games of football and are on a decent run of form. It means you're coming up against a side that are generally absolutely world class and know how to score and know how to stop the opposition scoring. And Everton at the moment are a team that, before the game against Fulham, seemed to not know how to, stop the opposition scoring, but also we're half decent going forward as well. I mean, obviously scored 3 at Old Trafford, conceded 3 at Old Trafford as well, scored 5 at Goodison against Tottenham, conceded 4. So Everton, I think, are a team that have gone through a couple of different patches this season in terms of goals scored and goals conceded. Obviously at the start of the season when we went on that 7-game win streak and we won the opening 4 games of the Premier League season, yes, we were scoring a lot of goals. We scored 5 against West Brom, 4 against Brighton, obviously 1 against Tottenham on the opening day of the season, 2 against Palace, 2 against Liverpool. So again, we were a side that was scoring, but we were also conceding. Again, conceded 2 against West Brom, 2 against Liverpool, 2 against Brighton, 1 against Palace. So we were in that sort of period where we were thinking, right, the attacking play is absolutely fantastic, and we've got that sorted, and Dom's firing on all cylinders. Richarlison's getting involved with the assists. James Rodriguez is getting involved. Absolutely excellent. But now we need to focus on not conceding at the other end of the pitch. Then we went through a little bit of a sticky spell, of course, where we started to lose a couple of games. And then the next decent spell of football, when we played Chelsea and Leicester away and Arsenal, again, we went through a period of not conceding many goals. We had that defensive line of Ben Godfrey, Yerry Mina, Michael Keane and Mason Holgate, and we didn't concede an awful lot whatsoever. Certainly not from open play, but we also weren't as free-flowing going forward. Dominic Calvert-Lewin had a little bit of a goals out where he didn't score for a number of games. Richarlison was fading out of games. James wasn't as effective, and we were getting our goals on the counter-attack. We were getting our goals by hitting teams when they were tired and scoring, and at the time, obviously, that was absolutely fine because we were winning games of football in that way, and that's great. But again, it was a period where we were struggling to score, but we weren't conceding, and now we've come out of it, and it seems a little bit like the start of the season where we're constantly, we can score, we're a threat, but we're also susceptible to conceding at the back. And we spoke yesterday on the game review to the Fulham game about Carlo Ancelotti constantly changing the back line, and how, Michael Keane had played every minute of football for Everton for the last sort of 7 or 8 months or so, and then recently in the last couple of weeks he's been in and out like a hot potato. He hasn't had a consistent run of games, and I understand that squad rotations needed, and I understand that these players need a rest, and that there's a lot of difficult fixtures coming up, aka this one against Manchester City tomorrow night. But for me, that inconsistency of not having the same back line week in, week out is causing issues for Everton. We saw, obviously, on Sunday evening, Ben Godfrey and Mason Holgate, who have both been very good defenders so far this season, and I think have both had a decent season for Everton. Certainly Ben Godfrey, they played as a centre-back partnership for the first time, and they just couldn't do it. There wasn't enough leadership there, it seemed, or there wasn't enough experience, at least. They just couldn't handle it against, a side in Fulham who were in the relegation zone. So I think we need to stop sort of chopping and changing the back line, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Carlo Ancelotti needs to assess this Everton team, and look, I'm not Carlo Ancelotti. I'm just a lad who sits in his bedroom and talks about Everton for an hour or so every other day. I'm not a manager who's won Champions Leagues, who's won Premier Leagues, who's won domestic cup competitions. I've got no right to sit here and question Carlo Ancelotti's tactics or Carlo Ancelotti's team selection. Well, I have got a right because I'm an Evertonian, and if I disagree with what he's doing, I'll call him out for it. But I've got no real sort of, I've got no accolades for people to say, yeah, he knows what he's talking about more so than Carlo Ancelotti. But for me personally, I understand the squad rotation discussion, I understand the issue, but I think we just need to sort of set out now with a straight back line and keep that back line for as long as we possibly can. Obviously, if we get injuries, there's going to be differences, but I think the way in which we should approach squad rotation now is the way in which we approached it with Dominic Calvert-Lewin a couple of weeks ago, and the same way as we approached it previously with the likes of James Rodriguez, and that's if a player pulls up during a game and says, look, I can feel a little bit of a tight calf or a tight hamstring, or I can feel I've got a slight issue coming up, then we don't take the risk and we take them off. And then obviously we avoid that injury before it happens, exactly like we've done with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Now, like I said, I am recording this prior to Carlo Ancelotti's pre-game press conference, so we don't know if Dom will be available for tomorrow, but Carlo did say prior to the Fulham game that he expects Dominic Calvert-Lewin to be back for next week's run of fixtures, so it'll either be tomorrow or the Merseyside derby. I'd rather we adopted that sort of idea with the back line, is to say, right, okay, from now on it's going to be Yerry Mina and Keane as the centre half, Dean at left back, Godfrey at right back, for example, and that is going to continue until one of those players turns around and says, look, I can feel a little bit of an injury coming up, or an injury is forced. And again, we don't want players to get injured, and we don't want to wear players down, but ultimately chopping and changing every 10 minutes and having 4 different centre-back partnerships in 4 different games and different full-back partnerships, aka etc. isn't helping whatsoever. It really isn't. We saw the partnership that Yerry Mina and Michael Keane sort of grew earlier on in the season, and they were absolutely excellent. Yerry Mina has gone under the radar for me massively this season. He's been one of Everton's best players, absolutely one of Everton's best players. Michael Keane as well has been exceptional, and the pair of them together didn't put a foot wrong. Okay, they struggled against Tottenham Hotspur, and I understand that, and that's unusual. Of course, we conceded 2 or 3 goals coming from set pieces, and that is very unusual because usually Yerry Mina deals with those situations. But every player is a allowed an off game. Every player is allowed a game where, you know, he struggles a little bit, and that was Yerry Mina's for me, whereas typically every ball that comes into the box, Yerry Mina's dealing with. Look at the Leeds game, he won more headers of the ball than any Everton player's done in, I think, 2 or 3 years in the Premier League. He was exceptional. And I honestly think Mina and Keane have built that centre-back partnership, because I think they both look at each other and they can assess the strengths and weaknesses of each other. So Mina can maybe look at Michael Keane and go, right, you're not as dominant in the air as I am, so I'll take up that role. And Keane might look at Mina and go, right, you're not as comfortable maybe passing out, you know, to the midfield or to the centre forward as I am, so I'll take over that role. And they really, really grew a fantastic partnership, and I think that needs to be reignited tomorrow. And I understand that, you know, Carlo might have looked at this and thought, right, Fulham will be the easier game on paper, so we'll start with maybe a little bit of an experimental backline, and then we'll revert back to, you know, what we know best against Manchester City on Wednesday. But that experimental backline didn't work at the weekend, and ultimately that's put us under a little bit of pressure. Not so much pressure in terms of, you know, anything to, like, relegation or anything like that, but if we'd have beat Fulham on Sunday, if we'd have gone out and let's say beat Fulham 3 or 4-0 or even 2-0, 1-0, whatever, if we'd have got the 3 points at Goodison Park on Sunday, I think we'd have all been sitting here today assessing this game, looking towards this Manchester City game going, do you know what, they're a very, very, very good side, they've got a lot of quality, they've got a lot of energy, and whatever happens, if as long as we put in 110%, as long as we fight, the results will be the results, and we'll go from there. Whereas now, I think we're sort of sitting here thinking, we need to give 110% now, and that's always been the issue. And I said it yesterday in the review to the Fulham game. The issue, as soon as I seen that performance against Fulham, as soon as I watched that game play out, my issue was always, we shouldn't be prioritising the Manchester City. The Fulham game should have been the priority. If you'd have said to me last week, right, you're going into a new week now, after the Spurs game, right, you're going into a sort of new run of fixtures, you've got Fulham, City and Liverpool, which is the most important to win? I'd honestly say, me heart would say Liverpool, because it's a Merseyside derby, and if you were telling me I could win one of the 3, it'd be Liverpool and Anfield, obviously. But the most important game of them 3 to win is Fulham, because it's the easiest game to win. We're at Goodison Park, and it should have been, and I don't want to sound too cocky or too arrogant, but it should have been a guaranteed 3 points for Everton. And then we come into the City game, you give it 110%, and whatever happens, happens. You go into the Liverpool game, it's a Merseyside derby, whatever happens, happens. And the reason why the Fulham game should have been the priority, should have been the game that we focused on more, is because if we'd have given 110%, if we'd have played with energy, if we'd have played with a little bit of style, with spirit, the key word that Carlo Ancelotti's mentioned on a number of occasions, spirit. If we'd have played with spirit on Sunday, we'd have beaten Fulham. Flip it to tomorrow night against Manchester City. We can play with as much spirit, we can play with as much energy, we can play with as much passion, fight. We can give 150% tomorrow and still not come away with a win. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying we won't win. I'm not saying we won't get anything out of the game. But what I'm saying is, if we'd have given 110% and showed that fighting spirit against Fulham, we'd have beaten Fulham on Sunday. I honestly believe that. Whereas if we show that fighting spirit tomorrow night against Manchester City, there's no guarantee we're going to get anything out of the game, because they're a very, very, very good side, and teams can play Manchester City and give 110% and give their all and still come away with nothing, because of the quality that they have in their team. And to be perfectly honest, if we give it 110% and we show some fight and we show some passion, I'll probably be sitting here on Thursday night or on the instant match reaction tomorrow saying, you know what, we've played well there, we've done okay, fair enough, they've shown a little bit of a fight, you know, we've lost to a better team, it's not the end of the world. And that wouldn't be the end of the world. And I don't think if we'd have beaten Fulham on Sunday and lost tomorrow, showing fight and energy and spirit, etc., I don't think any Evertonian would have had a negative word to say, because we'd have all sat back and gone, they are the best team in the league and they're going to run away with the league. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Whereas now, if we play with fighting spirit tomorrow and we narrowly lose or whatever, we're going to be thinking, why couldn't we play like that against Fulham? Because we'd have picked up the 3 points and we'd have been joint 4th with Liverpool in the Champions League places. So, again, it's not a must-win as such as relegation or anything like that, but it's going to be frustrating either way. If we don't turn up and we get our arses handed to us, because if we play like we did against Fulham, we'll get absolutely embarrassed. It'll be a cricket score, and if we do that, we'll all be sitting here absolutely fuming and frustrated because of that. But if we turn up and give it 110%, as much as we'll say that's a lot better, we'll also say, why couldn't you have done that against Fulham? Like I said, we should have prioritised that 3 points on Sunday more so than this game, because this game is going to be very, very, very difficult. Having said that, It's not impossible. It's never impossible to win a game of football. And you know what? I'm confident that Everton will put a performance in tomorrow. Am I confident that Everton will win? No, I'm not confident that Everton will win because, again, like I said, they're the opposition that we're coming up against. But am I confident that Everton will turn up tomorrow and show a bit of fight and show that spirit and show that passion? Absolutely. Of course I am, because that's what we do. We don't turn up in the games that you think, right, okay, if we turn up here, we'll beat these comfortably. And then we turn up in the games where you're looking at thinking, right, we're going to get nothing out of this game. You know, again, we ran on an awful run of form earlier on in the season. We turned up. We played Chelsea at Goodison Park. We beat them. We played Leicester away from home. We beat them. We played Arsenal at home in a difficult period. We beat them. We beat Wolves away from home. We beat Sheffield United, who were struggling for a win. We turn up. We come up against, West Ham on New Year's Day, who were in decent form at the time, but you're thinking, right, we'll beat these. Get beat by them, and the performance was utterly atrocious. We then turn up, we beat Wolves, yes, get in, absolutely brilliant. Go on another couple of games, turn up against Newcastle, team that are struggling towards the bottom end of the table. I've watched them 2 or 3 times since that game. They've been absolutely dreadful. Get beat by them comfortably at Goodison Park, turn up, beat Leeds, yes, get in, get a point at Man United. Okay, we're showing that fight, we're showing that spirit. Pull through against Tottenham in a difficult game. Yes, we're showing that fight. Turn up with no fight, no spirit. And that was, a big part of our game review yesterday to the Fulham game is complacency. And I honestly think Everton became complacent on Sunday. And we cannot afford to become complacent tomorrow evening against Manchester City. We cannot afford, because they hold no prisoners. They are not going to be complacent. Teams that win Premier League titles, teams that win Champions Leagues, teams that win, titles and leagues and honours all across the world, they don't become complacent. They don't get halfway through a season and think, right, we're 15 points ahead here, so we'll take our foot off the gas a little bit. They don't. They carry on going week by week by week, and every game is treated like a must-win. Every game is treated like a cup final, and that's why when you see these teams like Man City and you see the managers and the players getting interviewed, after every game they're interviewed and they're asked the same question, is it your title now? Are you going to win it? X, Y, X, Y, X, Y, Z. And they always stand there and say the same thing. We're not focused on the title, we're focused on the next game, we're focused on the next game, we're focused on the next game. And that's what champions do, and that's the mentality that you have to have if you want to be a champion, if you want to win titles, if you want to get far in cup competitions, if you want to go on and be a successful team. Your mentality simply has to be, forget about where we could be at the end of the season. Who's the next game, right? Brighton away. That's a must-win game. That's a cup final. And you take every game as it is, and you treat every game like it's the last game of football you're going to play, and you go out and you take no prisoners and you win every game. And that's what Manchester City have been doing. 10 wins out of 10, 26 goals scored, 2 goals conceded. They take no prisoners. They don't look at any team and think, right, we'll walk past these will be an easy match, because the last time they arguably did that, before they were top of the league, I think at the point where they played West Brom, I think Liverpool were top, Man United were in and around there, Tottenham were in and around there as well. Man City at that point were looked at as, right, you've dropped too many points now, you're not going to win it. And that was the last game, I think, and if you're a City fan watching, let me know in the comments. That was the last game, I think, that they become complacent. They turned up against the West Bromwich Albion team, who was struggling at the moment, just about to sack the manager, and they probably thought, right, this will be an absolute walk in the park here, and West Brom took a point off them. And that was a shocker to the system, and from that point on, every game since, they've gone, right, every game's a cup final now. No room for complacency, no room for lackadaisical play, no room for thinking that we've won the game before we even step on the pitch. Every game's a cup final. Every team you play is the best team in the world. Go out and do the business, take no prisoners, and that's what they've been doing. And I do think at times this season that's been Everton's downfall, and who knows where it would be. Look, you'd only have to look at, I think we're on 37 points now. I think Manchester City are, maybe 15 points ahead, something like that. Look at the games we've lost this season. Newcastle away, we become complacent, we beat them, there's 3 points. Newcastle at home, 6 points. You look at Fulham at home, there's 9 points. Leeds at home, there's 12 points. You could even say Burnley away from home, where we were awful and become complacent, 15 points. You add 15 points to Everton's total, and we're in the top 2 and we're fighting for that league title. And they're not games where we've been absolutely bladdered. It's not like I'm saying Man United, because we were outplayed by Man United. They were much the better team. It's not like I'm sitting here saying, I don't know. I'm not even accounting West Ham in that, because West Ham are on really good form. I'm talking about the teams that we all expected to beat, and we all sat here 2 or 3 days before that game and said, yeah, we'll win this game. This will be comfortable. There'll be no issue with this whatsoever. 15 points we could have picked up against sides that we realistically should have been beaten this season. And if we'd have turned up on the day and we'd have showed spirit and we'd have showed fight and we'd have showed passion and we wouldn't have been complacent, we'd have won those games. And if we'd have won those games, we'd be in a title race at the moment. We simply would be. And that's the most frustrating thing about Everton this season. And that will be the most frustrating thing come the end of the season, is because we might finish in a top 6 place. We might finish, 3 points behind the Champions League place, but then we'll all be sitting here at the end of the season going, if only we'd have beaten Fulham at Goodison and showed a bit of fight, if only we'd have beaten Burnley away and showed a bit of fight, if only we'd have beaten Newcastle at Goodison, who hadn't won a game for about 45 years before they come, and they beat us, if only we'd have beaten them, we'd have been much higher up the table. And again, that's why I'm not jumping on Carlo Ancelotti's back. He got it wrong the other day, and we're not talking about the other day, obviously, we're talking about the City game. He got it wrong, and he deserves to be called out for getting it wrong. But we are where we are this season because of the games that we've won. And I've seen some mad stuff on Twitter today about previous managers and talk about Marco Silva, etc. For every game we've lost this season that you think we shouldn't have lost, there's 2 or 3 games that we wouldn't have won without Carlo Ancelotti. Would we have beat Leicester City away from home without Carlo Ancelotti? I don't think we would. Wolves, don't think we would. Would we have had the battle to get back against United the other week? Don't think we would. Spurs in the Cup? No. Spurs on the opening game of the season? Not a chance for me. The battle to get back against Liverpool after going 1-0 down early on? Don't think so. So, for every game we've lost, there's 2 or 3 games that you can say we wouldn't have got anything out of without Carlo Ancelotti being the manager. And we've all sat here after those games and applauded and lauded how fantastic Carlo Ancelotti is. So, it was bad the other day, and he was at fault for that tactically and substitutions wise, etc, etc. But I refuse to jump on any of this reactionary, it's not good enough, blah blah blah. It's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. He is the manager to take us forward, in my opinion. He's the best manager Everton have ever had in my lifetime. Yes, the football wasn't great the other day. Yes, the spirit wasn't there. Yes, the fight wasn't there. And yes, that is partially down to the manager. But look at the games that we've won and all taken points of in recent weeks. This is going to be difficult tomorrow. Absolutely difficult. And that's not even, I don't even think they're 2 words you can put together. It's going to be a big, big, big test. And it's also a big test to see where we can match up against a side like Manchester City, who not only are at the top end of the league, and obviously we're sort of struggling to find out where we are at the moment. One week we look like a team that can fight at the top of the league, and the next week we look like a relegation battling team. So not only will it be interesting to see where and whereabouts Everton are quality-wise, but we also play Manchester City in the FA Cup quarter-final in a few weeks' time, 4 weeks' time. We come up against them again at Goodison Park in a quarter-final of an FA Cup. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see if we can step up to the plate and we can battle with this Manchester City side. So yeah, it's gonna be difficult. We all know that. There's no if, buts, and maybes, and I'm sure that a lot of you are probably sitting there thinking we've got no chance, Cam. There's no, not a chance we're getting anything out of this game. But to be perfectly honest with you, if we turn up tomorrow and we get a point, or we nick 3 points for the first time that Manchester City have lost since November, would anybody be really surprised? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't, because that's Everton through and through. Everton through and through is losing an easy game at home to a side that you should be beating, and then turning up and beating a game that seems impossible. That's Everton through and through. So I would not be surprised, and don't be surprised if Everton turn up and put in a fight and put in a performance tomorrow. And I fully expect Carlo Ancelotti and Duncan Ferguson to have got those lads together over the last couple of days at Finch Farm and after that game on Sunday night and said, lads, that's atrocious. That is absolutely abysmal. That's not good enough whatsoever, and we're not putting up with that. It's not acceptable. Turn up on Wednesday and show some fight. And I don't want to hear the players, if we do show some fight and if we do show some passion and we manage to get something out of the game, I don't want to hear the players come out after the game and say, yeah, we took our foot off the gas against Fulham, we become complacent, blah, blah, blah. We all know that. Don't even bother coming out and explaining what happened on Sunday. Go out, put it 110% in, get something out of tomorrow, go and do it again on Sunday, and then the next time we play a team that you look at and thinking, this should be a comfortable win here, go out and make it a comfortable win. Don't then take your foot off the gas again and become complacent again, and then turn up the week after and say, oh yeah, we took our foot off the gas and we become complacent. I said it yesterday, Alex Iwobi done a really, really interesting interview after the Leeds game, and he may have just been talking about himself, he may have been analysing himself individually, and I'm not going to go into Alex Iwobi because he didn't play the other day, but he done an interview after the Leeds game, and he was asked about the Newcastle results, and he said, look, we just took our foot off the gas. We just overlooked them a little bit. I don't think he said those exact words, but he said we took our foot off the gas. We become a little bit complacent, and we struggled in that game. We didn't really show the energy that we know we can. We didn't really show the fight that we know we can. So we turned up against Leeds and we showed that fight. Now, I sat there and listened to that interview after the Leeds game, and I thought, you know what? Fair enough. They've come out. They've said they become complacent. They've said that, maybe they overlooked the opponents a little bit, and then they turned up the next week and they didn't make that mistake again and they beat Leeds. Great. But there's absolutely no point in saying that, and there's absolutely no point in then turning up against Leeds and beating Leeds, turning up against United and getting a result out of United, turning up against Tottenham in the Cup and getting a result there. There's no point in any of those three fixtures if the next time you play a side that we all look at and think we should be beating, you become complacent again and you don't show any fight and you don't show any energy and you don't show any spirit, and then we get beat again. There's absolutely no point in coming out and saying, yeah, we took our foot off the gas, we won't do that again, and then winning, winning 2 of the next 3 games and getting a point out of the other one at Old Trafford, and then the next time you play a team that we look at and think, yeah, we should be beating, we go out and just put a performance in like we did on Sunday and get beat. There's no point in doing that. Listen, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. We know that. It's going to be very, very, very difficult. Manchester City have got quality in abundance, Ilkay Gundogan has been absolutely exceptional recently. He's been scoring goals like there's nothing else to do. He's been brilliant. They've got the likes of Raheem Sterling, who's been consistently fantastic for years and years and years. Gabriel Jesus, who I'm a massive fan of. I think he's a very, very good footballer, and he always seems to do well against Everton as well. So hopefully he's not starting tomorrow. They've got, obviously Bernardo Silva, who I think's been brilliant. John Stones, who we know also well, has been excellent recently. Ruben Diaz next to him has created this exceptional partnership. They've got an absolutely fantastic side, and that's all without Kevin De Bruyne, by the way. And there was an article that was put out on Sunday night after the Fulham defeat, which just completely topped the night off for me, and that was that Kevin De Bruyne may be fit for this game. Now, I haven't seen anything from Pep Guardiola leading into this game yet. Like I said, Carlo's press conference is until 1 o'clock this afternoon, so we won't know much from Carlo. I don't know when Pep Guardiola's is, but if Kevin De Bruyne is back, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, and we know how good he is. He's been consistently the best player in the league for a long time now. We don't need to sit here and analyse every single Manchester City player. They've got quality in abundance, and they are a side that can afford to take out their 2 centre-halves and replace them and still be very good. Take out their 3 attackers and replace them and still be very good, because they've got quality oozing out of them. Absolutely oozing out of them, be it in the first team, be it on the bench, be it on the reserves. They've got unbelievable footballers. I forgot to mention one of them then, Phil Foden. Phil Foden has been exceptional this season. Absolutely exceptional. That lad just dominates midfields. He just dominates. He gets forward, he creates, he scores goals. He's so silky on the ball. He beats men. We're going to have to make sure that the midfield battle against Phil Foden is won tomorrow. Absolutely won, because there's a very, very dangerous chance he could run rings around us. He could absolutely run rings around us. He's a fantastic, fantastic young player. So Man City have got, too much quality to even mention, and we know how much of a difficult test this is going to be. And one positive I would take out of Sunday, even though there's not many, but one thing I would look at going into this game is Everton usually do well when we have to react. We've seen it after the West Ham game, we've seen it after the Newcastle game, we've seen it after that run of defeats at the beginning of the season. Everton usually do well when we've put in an awful performance the week before and we have to come out and show a reaction. That's another thing, and then there's many things, and I'm not going to sit here and go into why Carlo Ancelotti's still a great manager, etc., because the nonsense that he isn't is that it's nonsense. But that's one of the many things that Carlo Ancelotti's brought to Everton, is that other than that little run at the start of the season, we don't tend to go on bad runs of form as such. We tend to pick ourselves up after a bad performance, and we might lose tomorrow, like I said, because Man City are very, very good, but I expect Everton to turn up and show a reaction. I expect Everton to put a performance in. I expect Everton to dig deep. I expect us to show fight. I expect us to show spirit. I expect us to put in a hard working performance tomorrow, because that is the type of reaction that we've seen after every other poor performance this season. Anyway, let's get into our predicted starting 11. Then look at the games at Goodison Park. I'd rather it be at the Etihad, to be honest, because we're much better away from home than we are at home, but it's at Goodison Park. Predicted starting 11 then. Obviously, like I said, Carlo Ancelotti hasn't had his pre-game press conference yet, so we don't know specifically who is fit and who's going to play and who isn't going to play, but again, just speculating. In goal, I've gone for Robin Olsen. Carlo did say prior to the Fulham game that he expects Jordan Pickford to be fit for, he didn't specifically say this game against Manchester City, but he said next week, so assuming that he means the City fixture and the Liverpool fixture. I think we've got more chance of seeing Jordan Pickford play against Liverpool on Saturday night, to be honest with you, than on Wednesday against City. I think he'll go with Robin Olsen again. Was he at fault for the 2 goals against Fulham? I think it'd be harsh to say he was, to be honest with you. Maybe he should have covered his ground a little bit more when that ball come into the box for the opener, and maybe he should have tipped the ball out, past the post when the second shot come in that was tapped in. But again, I think that'd be being quite harsh on Robin Olsen. I think defensively we were atrocious the other night, absolutely atrocious, and I think a large part of the blame has to go on those defensive errors rather than on Robin Olsen, who I think is put in. Again, it's difficult, isn't he? I think he's had spells of being fantastic. He had a spell at the start of the game against Tottenham where he was excellent. He kept us in the game at 0-0 and at 1-0 as well. But then he didn't really command his area when crosses were coming in. He had a spell again the other day against Fulham at 0-0. I think he made a save within the first 5 seconds of the game and he was absolutely excellent. But again, conceded 2 goals. So I think he's done well. I don't think the goals we've conceded have been specifically down to him other than the goals maybe against Manchester United. But I just think Carlo will want to rest Jordan Pickford ahead of a derby at Anfield, and that's probably given all of you. That's probably made all of you turn off right now and put your pillow over your head and sort of just thinking, I'm going back to sleep. I don't want to listen to any of that sort of stuff. Your pillow over your head, your quilt over your head. Sorry, not your pillow. And thinking, I just want to go back to sleep. I don't want to hear the thought of Pickford be playing in a Merseyside derby at Anfield again. But the reality of the situation is, Carlo said once Pickford returns from injury, he'll be back in the team. He said Robin Olsen will continue to play, but Jordan will be back in the team as well. So I think it's just a guessing game now as to whether or not Jordan will be fit, and I'm sure we'll hear from Carlo in about an hour or so to find out whether he will be, and if he is, whether or not he'll start. But I'm going for Robin Olsen for this one, just because I think, like I said, I think at the moment we don't know the update on Jordan, so I think he'll go with Robin Olsen. Backline then, I've gone for Luca Dean at left back, Michael Keane and Yerry Mina at centre half, and then Ben Godfrey at right back. The defensive partnership of Ben Godfrey and Mason Holgate just didn't work the other day. Didn't work whatsoever. There wasn't enough experience there. There wasn't enough energy there. They were just caught out far too many times, and they were caught out again. No disrespect to Fulham, but they were caught out by a Fulham side who were fighting relegation this season. They weren't caught out by a Manchester City side who have scored 26 goals in 10 games and are consistently breaking forward and hitting teams. They were caught out by a Fulham team who have struggled to get results this season. I don't think either player has been individually poor recently. I mean, Ben Godfrey's been absolutely exceptional, and Mason Holgate's done well as well, but just as a centre-back partnership, they did not work, and it is time now for Yerry Mina and Michael Keane to reignite that centre-back partnership. I don't want to see Mina and Holgate, I don't want to see Keane and Godfrey, I don't want to see Godfrey and Mina, I want to see Michael Keane and Yerry Mina, because, okay, Tottenham Hotspur game aside, where they struggled to defend balls into the area, they've been very, very good this season at doing that. Other than that game, Yerry Mina has been unbelievably solid in the air. He's gotten rid of pretty much everything that's come into him. Michael Keane's been very, very good with the ball at his feet as well. Not only that, but he's been very good defensively. And like I said, the pair of them went the first however many months, 2 or 3 months of the Premier League season without missing a game of football, and they went through a purple patch where they were struggling and we were conceding a lot of goals, but then they sorted it out, and it was almost like the amount of game time that they had and the fact that they were playing consistently and the fact that they were playing a lot of games, it helped them. It helped them to build that partnership. It helped them to build that sort of duo at the back line, and they started to understand each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses, and they built off that. And I think they've been exceptional this season, the pair of them, and I don't think they deserve to be taken out. Yes, I understand that they didn't play on on Sunday, probably because Carlo Ancelotti had the idea that they'd both play tomorrow, and I fully expect Yerry Mina and Michael Keane to both play tomorrow, unless there's any injury news that I'm sure we'll wait and see of. But again, I think the pair of them have been two of Everton's best players this season overall, and have been exceptional recently as well, you know, taking away that Tottenham Hotspur game. So for me, Yerry Mina and Michael Keane at centre-half, Luca Dean at left-back. Again, we're going to need a lot from Luca Dean tomorrow. I think defensively he needs to step up a little bit because he has been caught out a couple of times in recent weeks. And I also think going forward, he needs to start throwing those balls into the box like we know he can do. You know, Manchester City are a side that, like I said, you're not only going forward are exceptional and score a lot of goals, but don't concede a lot of goals defensively. You know, it's not like we're looking at a team who, you know, concede 4 but score 6 every game and they're winning games because of their attacking power. They're not. They're equally as strong defensively as well. So we're going to need that attacking prowess and that attacking threat of Luca Dean. So Luca Dean at left back and then Ben Godfrey at right back. I mean, you'd assess the options that you've got at right back and you think, right, we've got Ben Godfrey, we've got Seamus Coleman, we've got Mason Holgate. I haven't been a massive fan of Mason recently. Not that I haven't been a massive fan of him. I really like Mason, but I just don't think he's performed recently as well as he should do, as well as he could do. I think he's struggled, to be perfectly honest with you, and I think he needs a couple of games out of the limelight. I think he needs a couple of games out of the team. Again, coming up against a really, really good attacking side, of course, and Mason has struggled to deal with sides that come at you and attack you recently. And then you look at Seamus Coleman, and as you know, Seamus has done okay recently, and I think he done okay the other night, but he just doesn't offer enough for me. Doesn't get forward as much as he used to do. Defensively, he does a job, but again, he's not brilliant there. And I just think, to be honest, I'd rather have Ben Godfrey in there. I think Ben Godfrey has looked more comfortable at full-back than he has at centre-back this season. I think he's looked most comfortable at left-back, to be perfectly honest with you. And there's a shout, there is a very good shout for Carlo Ancelotti to revert back to the back line that we know of. That was performing brilliantly defensively recently, and that's Godfrey at left-back, Holgate at right-back, Mina and Keane at centre-back, and then push Luca Dean up a little bit, and there's a shout for that. There's also a shout for Carlo Ancelotti to go with 5 at the back and play Mina, Keane and Godfrey as a centre-back partnership, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did that either, considering the team that we're coming up against. I think we all know it's going to be a defensive tactic. It's going to be a defensive formation because it was defensive against Fulham on Sunday and they were a team in the relegation zone. So I think we can all sort of understand that it's going to be defensive against the Manchester City side who are running away with the league at the moment. But again, I just think Mason needs a couple of games out the team, to be honest with you. I think he's struggled recently, and I think even if you move him to right back, I think he's still going to struggle, especially given the forward options that Manchester City have. So I've gone with Ben Godfrey at right back. I think he's the more solid option. I think he's been, again, individually very good recently. Positional wise was a little bit off the other night, but he's been exceptional so far this season, and he deserves to continue in the team for me. Going into the midfield then, I've gone for Abdoulaye Doucouré, Tom Davies and Alan. I've gone for Alan to make his return. Obviously, he was on the bench the other night against Fulham, didn't come on. Carlo went with the midfield of Andre Gomes, Gylfi Sigurdsson, Tom Davies, Doucouré and James in whichever way they were playing, whichever formation they were playing in, and it didn't work. James Rodriguez, Sigurdsson and Andre Gomes simply can't play in that same team together. Alan being on the bench was a massive boost. Obviously, Carlo said originally he was going to miss the game, so we weren't even thinking he was going to be on the bench on Sunday against Fulham. He was on the bench, and I think this is the game that he comes back into, to be honest with you. And again, I understand both sorts of sides of the arguments, as to say, well, don't rush him in against a side like Manchester City who are very good. Ease him in, maybe bring him off the bench. But for me, he's our best defensive midfield player. In fact, he's our best midfield player, so he has to be in there. Even though he's coming back from an injury, even though he's not had the game time recently, he has to go in there for me. If he's fit, and I assume he is fit because he was on the bench the other night and he's had another couple of days rest, he has to go in there and he has to play for me. So I've gone with Alan in the middle, Doucouré next to him. Again, wasn't as great as the game the other day, but genuinely has been very, very good, and I think his energy in the middle of the park could be absolutely pivotal for us. Again, we're coming up against the midfield that is going to be packed with the likes of Phil Foden in there, who have been exceptional recently, maybe Rodri in there as well, who's a very good footballer. So I think it's absolutely imperative that Abdoulaye Doucouré plays in there, that energy that he brings, that fight that he brings, that, again, that constant level of physicality and running around and never stopping is just massively missed when he's not in there. So for me, he starts. And then I've gone with Tom Davies as the other midfielder. Again, it's a toss-up between Sigurdsson, Gomez and Davies, and I'm putting James in the team, which you'll find out in a moment. And with James being in the team, I don't think there's much need for Gylfi Sigurdsson, because I don't think he does anything defensively, and I don't think that Andre Gomez put in a good enough performance the other day to warrant keeping his place, whereas I think Tom Davies was very unlucky to come off against Fulham. I actually think he was very, very solid. So I've gone with Tom, Alan and Decore in the centre of the park. Again, not really sure which formation Carlo will go with. He might go with a diamond. If that's the case, I'll go with Decore and Alan as a 2, and then James in front of them in the number 10 role with Dom up front. I will go into the attackers anyway in the moment. But judging by recent team news and recent predicted recent starting 11s, I've gone with those 3 in midfield. And then a front 3. Again, I've chosen a 4-3-3 just because I feel like with Carlo Ancelotti, we don't know which formation he's going to go with. He might go with a 4-4-2. He might go with a 5 at the back. He might go with a 4-3-3. He might go with a 4-3-2-1. I don't know. But I've gone with the 3 up front that I think will lead the line, and that is James Rodriguez, Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Richie didn't have his greatest of games the other night. I think he only touched the ball a matter of 12 times or something like that. Don't really think that was his fault, to be honest with you. He wasn't being played into whatsoever. He wasn't getting any saves. He wasn't getting any luck. He wasn't getting anything. So I don't think that was his fault. I think he'll start. James, again, wasn't his greatest performance the other night. Did feed a couple of nice balls in, but they never came of anything. But obviously he is that outlet. He is that magic that, this game might fall down to a magic moment. We might be able to hold Manchester City off for 70 odd minutes, defend really, really well, and this game might come down to a magical moment. And if any Everton player is going to provide that magical moment, it's James Rodriguez. And then Dom up front again. We'll wait for the next hour or so to hear what Carlo Ancelotti has to say about the team news and who's available and who isn't available. But given the fact that he said he expects Dominic Calvert-Lewin to return this week, I'm putting Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front because, again, Richie didn't have an awful lot of service the other night. Josh King wasn't great when he come on, done a couple of decent bits, obviously scored, but it was offside. And let's be perfectly honest with you, if we want the best chance of beating a team like Manchester City, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, if fit, has to be in this side, same as James Rodriguez. If Carlo goes with a 4-2-3-1, I'd probably go with the same back line. I'd go with Decore and Alan in that 2 midfield role. I'd go with James sort of as in the number 10, and then I'd go with Richarlison on the left-hand side, Dom up front, and maybe Alex Iwobi on the right-hand side to provide a little bit of energy. Didn't come on the other night. I actually think quite unlucky to not come on because he would have provided that energy, he would have provided that fight. But let's be honest, that's a little bit more of an attacking formation, that's a little bit more of a progressive style of play, and I honestly think we'll set out this game to defend and to try and hold Manchester City off a little bit like we did against Chelsea earlier on in the season, a little bit like we did against Arsenal earlier on in the season as well. But there you go, that is my predicted starting 11. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Again, like I said, we'll wait for 1 o'clock this afternoon until Carlo gives us his pre-game press conference, and then we'll find out who is available and who isn't. But this is going to be a very, very difficult game of football, of course, a very, very difficult game of football. Man City are an absolutely exceptional side. They're running away with the league at the moment. They're constantly scoring. They're not conceding many goals. But don't bet against Everton to not turn up. I'm not saying that we'll win the game. I'm not saying that we'll even get anything out of the game, because I said it yesterday, even at 110% Everton, who are fighting, who are showing spirit, who are showing passion, who are playing out of this world, that team still mightn't be good enough to beat this Manchester City team at the moment, because they are another level. But don't bet against us not turning up. Don't bet against us not showing fight, because if we perform like we did against Fulham, it will be a cricket score, and it will be absolutely embarrassing, and it might be one that we all sort of turn off after 45 minutes, to be honest with you. So expect the reaction. Every time we've put in a dross performance this season, Carlo Ancelotti has demanded a reaction, and to be fair, the players have shown a reaction. Like I said, it's not impossible. I don't think it's impossible we win this game. I don't think it's impossible we get anything out of this game, but we are absolutely going to have to be at 150, 200% to do that, because they're just, they're fantastic so far this season, and it's going to be difficult. But again, I wouldn't put it past me if Everton did turn up, and it wouldn't put it past me if Everton did get something out of the game. But if we are to, I think Alan needs to start if fit. I think Dom needs to start if fit. And I think we seriously need to sort ourselves out from the other day, because that was far too complacent. There wasn't enough energy. There wasn't enough fight. There wasn't enough anything, really. It was just a nothing performance, wasn't it? Anyway, that is going to do it for today's game preview. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. We'll be back with the instant match reaction and the player ratings, of course, after the game tomorrow night. So don't forget to look out for those. Like I said, please do hit that like button if you have enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new as well. Massive thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.